Everton, Matt Elliott have run out 2-1 winners.
Yeah, they have. Questions will be asked, obviously, because, you know, the nature of the defeat and the nature of conceding the goals. One of them, good play from Everton, you have to say, in the first case. And in the second instance, a harshly given penalty against Wilfred Ndidi. But that's the way the cookie crumbles. Sometimes, you know, you have to dust yourself down and deal with it. And Leicester, in fairness, you know, gave their all to try and do that. Got themselves back into the game, deservedly so, and looked quite a good bet to get themselves properly back on level terms. But despite one or two half chances and a couple of skirmishes, eventually it petered out as such, and, you know, Everton, under the guidance of Ancelotti, dealt with the situation. But big blow to Leicester, because the teams behind Man United and Wolverhampton Wanderers in particular gaining ground again regularly now, and the gap is really closing. So certainly a point of concern for Brendan Rodgers, despite being buoyed, I would say, by the general performance was there. But still, quite a few things that need to be adjusted and worked on.
Yeah, Tony, I mean, Brendan Rodgers and Leicester, and obviously all the Leicester fans out there watching do feel like, get involved if you want to with the show. Use the hashtag LCFC or hashtag then, now and again. Get your full-time thoughts into us. But Tony, as I said, they'll all be bitterly disappointed with that.
Yeah, they will be, Dan, because I think it's a good opportunity wasted. I think if you look at the overall aspects of the game, I think Leicester were, for me, definitely the better team. I think their final ball's been found wanting. I think it's a real issue at the moment. I think for whatever reason, their final ball is letting them down. Obviously, things didn't go to plan in that first 15 minutes or so. You know, I've got to say, a very, very good Everton goal, very well worked, and Richarlison finished it well. And then, of course, there was the issues with the penalty. You know, but like Walshy said, it was like a 10-minute spell really, where Everton had the two goals, but the rest of the time, you know, you feel that Leicester dominated the possession. They had efforts on goal. They certainly, if you probably looked at the amount of crosses that have been put in compared to what Everton put in, you know, I'm sure there'd be at least twice as many crosses gone in, but the quality just wasn't there. And I think the last 10 minutes, whether they got a little bit tired, Leicester, or not, but they didn't really cause too many problems for Jordan Pickford. Iheanacho had that sort of good chance, really, that he put over the bar. But it's a bitter disappointment for Leicester. And, you know, you just got to hope that perhaps West Ham will do Leicester a favour tonight and beat Chelsea, although highly unlikely the way my old team's playing at the moment. But, you know, Leicester, unfortunately, are now in a position where they're starting to look at the other results rather than worrying about their own performances. And I think that's the biggest disappointment of it all.
Walshy, I've come to you last because when Leicester win, you feel the highs as much as any Leicester fan, and when they lose, you feel the lows as much as any Leicester fan. So I've given you a couple of minutes to try and get your thoughts together after that one.
Yeah, I would say it's frustration really now. I think Brendan as well will be absolutely frustrated with, you know, obviously the result, not getting back into the game. He's done everything from a manager's point of view that you could do. I think that Tony is right with the fact that the quality in the final ball is not good enough. There's no doubt in my mind that after seeing we waste a lot of needless wrong intentions and passes, but you know, let's give Everton a bit of you know, they defended well. They defended very deep in the end, and they were forced into you know, just a one-way traffic game where they've Ancelotti said, right, well, you're going to have to beat us. We'll bring three centre-backs. We've got three centre-backs now. We're playing a 5-4-1. They couldn't have defended any better. So, you know, Keane and Holgate were strong at the back, but the opportunities that fell and the quality of the final ball was nowhere near good enough. And for me, we're a little bit naive at times. Naive in a sense of what are in, you know, the purpose and the intentions when we get in that final third. And you know, what frustrates me in the last, you know, you've got 6 minutes of injury time, and I want to see it in the box. I want to see us, throw balls in and let's test, let the centre backs maybe win a header and someone picks a second ball up and you can score from that. But we seem to them 6 minutes just give the ball away, and it was a good opportunity to score late if we could have. But good substitute, Maddison and Iheanacho really turned the game for us really, and you've got to say that. Leicester are unlucky today, but again, we're in a position where we are still in our hands. We've said it for the last few games. You look at we're 3 points in front of Man United and Wolves. I'm not bothered about Chelsea at the moment, but Man United and Wolves were 3 points in front of them with a bigger goal difference. So it's still there. It's still. I'm trying to get a positive out of a defeat really, and I know what's going to happen. Again, the press are going to add more pressure on this team. Now, you'll see what happens on social media, and it does not help one bit. We just got to, dust ourselves down and look at the next game. Is it Crystal Palace, I think, on Saturday? And that is an opportunity again. And, we'd welcome the 3 points, wouldn't we? But it is frustrating because we are playing some decent football and just naivety and lack of quality in the final third.
Tony, I know you talk a lot, obviously, about perspective. You did so after that Brighton game, and you did so before the game here. And it is an important point. I guess I know that it is frustrating to look at sometimes, but Leicester are 3 points clear of 5th place at the moment. Everyone's played the same amount of games in and around there. I know Chelsea, obviously, are due to play later, but the chasing pack-wise, there's 3 points in it. If you'd have asked any Leicester fan at the beginning of the season, Tony, that with 6 games to play, they'd be 3 points clear of 5th place, they 100% will have taken it.
Yeah, of course they would, Dan. And I always try and be positive. I know Walshy trying to do that as well. You've got to be positive about this and keep things in perspective. I mentioned the fixtures before, but Leicester, I think, have got a good fixture list. Excuse me, there's some really good games for them to come where they can look to pick up points. All right, they've had a slow restart to the season. We know that, in terms of the points, I think if you looked at those first 3 games and who they were playing, I think you would be saying to yourself, well, you would expect to maybe have 4, 5, even 6 points from those games. And to only have the 2 points, I think is highly frustrating for everyone involved. So that's the disappointment about it. But you're right. Top 6, top 3, and you're going into those last 6 games. What more could you ask for? It's a wonderful end to the season, and everyone's got to try and stay positive. I just hope that Brendan will get the boys in training over the next couple of days when they've recovered from the game, and just think about that final ball, because it's so important. And as I keep saying, I think sometimes modern day football, you can try and score the sort of the perfect goal as such, and you don't always have to do that. Sometimes you just go back to a little bit of the old school, a little bit of traditional football, where put the ball into the box, whiz one across the face of goal and let the forwards try and get on the end of it. I think there was too much aimless crossing and too many aimless balls played into the box. And I agree with Walshy. I think the last 5-6 minutes they didn't do enough, Leicester, to really put Everton under pressure and try and get that equalising goal. That was a disappointment, but they are still 3 points clear of Wolves and Manchester United. They've got the massive goal difference that's still in play at the moment, and that could become crucial with Manchester United still to play in that last game of the season. So everyone needs to keep their chin up. They need to keep positive and believe that this Leicester team can turn it around. And it's a good game. Palace at home at the weekend is a good game to, try and refocus and get those 3 points that they need.
Well, we can see that league table, Matt, in just a moment's time. And again, echoing what Tony Cottee was saying there, they 100% would have taken it at the beginning of the season. It is 3 points now, the gap to 5th place, obviously, in Manchester United.
Yeah, as the boys are saying there, it's a healthy position for a club like Leicester City to be in, exceptionally healthy. But, it's just recent times, isn't it? Recent form, and the form before the interruption hasn't gone as swimmingly as hoped for. Certainly in comparison to the scintillating start that Leicester had to the campaign. Now, if for whatever reason, you know, the form table had been reversed, that they'd started with a stutter and just really, you know, come up with a red hot flow of results to culminate in this position, then it's a different scenario. So, you know, again, everyone talks about the pressure going on, and people have been nervous for months now and worried about the chasing pack. The gap has closed, yeah, but you know, I think generally Brendan Rodgers has just preoccupied himself with getting a message across to the players. It's just, listen, just carry on with your own business. You know, do what's important to us from our point of view, and see where it takes us. And it's taken them, you know, although it hasn't quite gone to plan, admittedly, but it's taken them to 3 points clear, as we've said, of 5th and 6th. There, you know, with just those 6 games to go, and you know, I slightly disagree with Tony. You know, to a very small level, I think those games could be tricky, a few of them for different reasons. But although I do take on board the point, it's only Man United who would directly challenge him or scrap him for anything. You know, I think Sheffield United, and Tottenham and Arsenal away, with Sheffield United at home, all difficult fixtures, aren't they?
Well, we can take a look at the next 3, actually.
Yeah, Palace at the weekend is like, obviously off the back of this defeat at Goodison has become even more imperative, isn't it?
Here you go. So Saturday, obviously, 3 o'clock kickoff. Crystal Palace. We start with City on the sofa at 2 o'clock, and then Arsenal, and then Bournemouth. Walshy. When you look at those 3 fixtures now, there's suddenly a huge amount of importance on all 3.
Of course, there is on every game now to the end of the season. I think we knew that coming back, that every game is like a semi-final or a cup final. There's no doubt about it. That's how much is riding on this, and that elusive win, you know, is getting harder and harder. Obviously, Crystal Palace coming up. I think Wilfried Zaha, he picked up an injury, which crucially could be important for them. If he's out, obviously whenever he's out, he's a massive loss to Palace. So it's an opportunity again. It's a favourable game, you know. But saying that, Watford, Brighton, and Everton were games that you would kind of expect to get points from, and we've not got you know, as many as we should have. But still, we're in the hunt. You were still there as the fact of the pack are chasing us. Man United have got such a momentum now that their goal difference could be similar to ours by the time we play them, if there's something riding on it. But you look at the Arsenal game, they're the beatable Arsenal at the minute. Bournemouth are fighting for their lives, but they look doomed after tonight's performance. So the next 3 games we're looking at, there's opportunities and points, but we're, you know, like I say, that naivety, that lack of quality is really costing us at the moment. And like I said, Brendan will be frustrated, like all of us are, because you feel there's something coming from the team and it just didn't happen. And it's a good feeling, but you know, you've got to make it happen on the pitch, and we're not doing. And you know, I just feel that we're our own worst enemies sometimes, and it's going to be a fight the whole way in, and I hope we can do it. I really do. And we're still, after all these games, we are still holding the cards, which is unbelievable looking at the recent you know, damage of results. So but saying that, you look at the play, look at the way you know, against Chelsea, against Brighton in the second half, dominated. Brighton were out on their feet. You know, Chelsea first half was unbelievable. You know, so we've really we're dominating for large parts of the game, but not getting over the line, and that's the hardest part, as everyone knows that. And it was, you know, just encouraging though in the end with the way that Vardy got support. I think that he looked eager to impress and do something, and I really felt he was going to get a goal. I thought this was going to be his night, but it wasn't. But he certainly started to have that fizz about him and that X factor that we've always known about him.
Well, that's the disappointed voice of Steve Walsh here on City on the Sofa. Let's hear now from Jerry Taggart, who was at Goodison Park this evening.
Hi, Jerry here again after the game here at Goodison Park, which Leicester lost 2-1 to Everton. A game that, you know, Leicester were well in. Everton started the game slightly better, but both teams pretty even in that first half. Everton taking the lead from a good move down their left-hand side with Richarlison just tucking home at the near post. And then the controversy, again of VAR, with a penalty decision going Everton's way. They slotted that home to go 2-0 up. Brendan Rodgers makes some changes at half-time. Maddison comes on. Ian Nacho goes up front with Vardy. And you think that does the trick. But credit to Ancelotti, he makes a couple of personnel changes, a couple of formation changes, and he sees the game out. The disappointing end to a really, really exciting second half from Leicester City. Probably should have ended up a draw, but for VAR.
Well, we'll talk about VAR in just a moment's time, because we could be talking about that for quite a while. But Tony, just picking up on one thing Jerry did say there, he said credit to Ancelotti in that second half. Obviously, Brendan Rodgers blinked first, made those changes at half-time, but he reacted brilliantly and again just showed the experience that he's got from so many years at top level.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I think obviously Leicester made the 2 substitutions at half-time. Without a doubt, made a huge difference. They got the goal back, and Everton were a bit all over the place. If anything, the Richarlison injury perhaps worked in Everton's favour, because they brought Tom Davies on. That did seem to stabilise them a little bit. And then, of course, he then made another really good substitution, because he brought on Yari Mina, who's a big, strong centre-half. Put the 3 centre-halves on together to match up with the 2 forward players that Leicester had on the field. And after Mina come on, there wasn't too much happening. It was very, very congested down the centre of the pitch. And as I said, the quality of the crosses coming in weren't particularly good. And when they did come into the box, I've got to say that the Everton defenders did what you would expect them to do. Keane, Holgate and Mina are all good, big, tall boys, who can head the ball away, and they defended really well. So, yeah, credit to Ancelotti. I think he reacted well to the Leicester substitutions and the Leicester dominance, because I think, for the first half an hour of that second half, there was total dominance from Leicester, and there was only one team that really looked like was going to, get the point or win the points, and that was Leicester. But his substitutions, he tweaked it around. Fair play to him for that. Not good from Leicester's point of view, but Ancelotti showed what a good manager he is. Right,
we'll come to you straight away, Tony, for the VAR controversy, if you like. We sat here, didn't we, after that Brighton game, and must have talked for about 15, 20 minutes about why a penalty maybe should have been given for Leicester at the end of that game. And now a penalty was given for a handball, but it went against Leicester this evening. And how harsh do you think that one was on Wilfred Ndidi?
The thing is, Dan, I think we've historically we've refereed without VAR, and now you've got VAR. All we ask for, whether you're a player, manager, fans, pundits, is consistency. That is the one word that we ask for, consistency. Now, if that means that every decision is consistently bad, I'll live with that, because every decision's bad. But we saw that last week with the game, the handball. It was the most ridiculous handball not given. And then you then look at it tonight, and yeah, you can argue that perhaps there's 2 arms up at the same time. I agree with Matt's point. Keane probably has forced his arm up a little bit higher than it should have been. It hits his hand first and that, and there's 2 hands up together. But, why give that and not give what should have been given last week, which ultimately, cost Leicester 2 points last week. And this maybe has cost them, at least a point this week. So it's that consistency, Dan. It's never going to be perfect, I don't think. I think we've spoke about it many times before. They need to tweak the rules, because the rules are very heavily weighted in favour of defenders and not attracting more goals. And football is about goals. So they need to tweak the rules at the end of the season. But just be consistent. I just get so frustrated with it. I really do. That I look at what was a blatant handball last week at the KP, not given. And then you look at that incident today, and I'm sure the boys will back me up on this. We must have seen 20, 25 videos, and you're looking at it slowed down, different angles and everything. And although eventually you come to the conclusion, you think to yourself, well, both hands are in the air, and probably Wilf's hand is probably the first one to touch the ball. I wasn't convinced it was a penalty, because there was so much uncertainty. And then when there is that much uncertainty, they don't say to the referee in his ear, go and look at the screen, have a look at it, look at the monitor. That's what it's there for. And that is where the inconsistencies are. You know, I don't know about the other two boys, but it drives me mad because it is so inconsistent.
Do you know what, TC? You can imagine him at Stockley Park tossing a coin then, was it? Or wasn't it a penalty? You know, who is actually, you know, making that decision? I'd love to see, you know, what they're talking about, how they're saying what it was, you know, how they're describing the situation. So, you know, it's just so inconsistent that things aren't working with that. But, you know, you never hear Brendan really ever, you know, have a go at anybody about these decisions, do you? But he must be frustrated deep down in himself. But you don't get anywhere these days, do you? I suppose it evens itself out over a season. But it's he can find himself indeed really unlucky there and a little bit harsh. I did think that, but still, it's happened. It's gone.
He didn't do himself any favours, Walter, by being the wrong side, really. Because like, he had to come back and try and sort of clamber. You know, back into position with Keane there. You know, he had got the march on him, and that was why there was a little bit of desperation in the challenge. But you know, his arm was up there in and around the vicinity where it wouldn't be ideally. But that's points against, you know, Wilfred Ndidi in favour of the decision. But his arm has been elevated by Keane itself. Like he probably would have retracted his arm, you know, by the time the ball was actually there, if he could have, but it was nudged upwards, so it was sort of out of his control. There was no intent.
Yeah, it's a clumsy, desperate challenge, like you say.
Surely they've got to read into that. And as Tony says, you know, if they're not sure after 4 or 5 replays, then, you know, it's clear and it's not clear and obvious, is it? So in that case, it should at the very least be put to the referee's determination. But to lose a game, you know, of such relative magnitude like that on that decision, when I think it was the wrong decision, you know, all things considered. But it could have such a, you know, a bearing on the outcome of Leicester City's, you know, certainly immediate future. And you know, it was severely harsh, to say the least.
Yeah, bitterly disappointing for Leicester. Now, you could argue it's twice that VAR has got in the way of Leicester's fortune since the return of football. Right, let's move away from VAR. Walshy, you've very much become the stat man since we've started on City on the sofa.
Someone's going to question me.
No, don't worry. You've brought your own stats out, but we can show you the full-time stats now here from Goodison Park for you to have a little talk through. Again, Leicester dominating the possession.
Yeah, of course, we know that. And, you know, look how many times, you know, all the other stats you could look at. Casper, how many times has he touched the ball? You know, how many passes did Ndidi? You know, you can look at everything, but stats mean nothing now. They don't. Okay, we can have a look at it. It's a bearing on something to look at for an analysis purpose, but does it get you to shoot on target and score a goal? Does it do, you know, a wrong bounce and you've pounced and you've scored? Does it do that? It doesn't alter the scoreline. And shots on target is 3. And yet we've been in positions to have a lot more shots at goal and we haven't created that.
Well,
but
15
fair play,
shots and only 3 of them were on
target. That's what I mean. So we're not. That tells you something. In the other games as well, how many were on target? Not many. And we're not getting, okay, a bit of rub of the green could be better, but, you know, I'm not a big statistician in them senses because you've got to analyse on the pitch and do it on the pitch, and I think we've been naive and that quality's not been good enough, so you're not going to get shots on target, so them stats are going to say that, but we're working in the right direction, and any team that gets possession in that way is going to get the better of the play, and it's the final third that worries me that we haven't got right at this moment. But you know, listen, it's a dangerous team, Leicester City, when they're firing on all cylinders. You've seen what damage they've done from the start of the season, but it's just not happening at the moment.
Matt, how do you see the game with Palace then on Saturday? Do you envisage Brendan Rodgers maybe doing something, starting with a team he started the second half with, for example, the way they started that second half so well?
Certainly wouldn't rule it out. Yeah, I think think by and large, Leicester have worked well in the 4-1-4-1 system that they play. You know, it suited them with the wide men being able to patrol their areas as well as coming in. And when Leicester are playing well, the midfielders support Jamie Vardy, and as do those wide men. They can come off their perch and the fullbacks get forward. When everything's free-flowing, I think that's probably the best system for them with the personnel they've got. But Brendan spoke about being flexible and having to adjust throughout the course of the season, and you know he's done that to varying degrees of success. You know, I think I'd say against Brighton, I was slightly surprised that Leicester being at home effectively matched Brighton up. I thought that they might sort of seize the initiative and you know force Brighton to cope with them, and it sort of nullified you know both sides really to that extent. But then today it was called for, wasn't it? Because Leicester, they'd struggled for goals of late and before, you know, the interruption as well. All of a sudden, eventually the point became a little bit obvious. I think Jamie Vardy ultimately needs some assistance because it was becoming too straightforward for opposition defenders. And with the introduction of a man alongside him, in this case Iheanacho, and then later on in the game, Maddison introduced, and Perez and Gray, all of a sudden, you know, the attacking possibilities were more plentiful. And I think come Saturday, I think it will certainly be in Brendan's mind initially, especially against a team like Crystal Palace, who first and foremost are difficult to break down. Very well organised, very resolute, and Leicester could end up playing the majority of the game in front of them if they don't mix it up a bit.
Tony, do you think, same question really that I asked Matt, do you think that they will start with the side that started that second half against Palace, of course, at home on Saturday?
Yeah, I think there's certainly a case for Iheanacho to start up front with Jamie. I think looking at Palace, I think they pretty much sort of almost played with one up front the other night, and that was almost in a home game. I think with any team like under Roy Hodgson, they're very, very, very well organised. They'll probably play a back four, which would mean that if you do play the two boys up there, that's going to give them something to think about. You know, Everton did struggle with the back four tonight. It was only when they really went to the back five or the back three centre-halves that they finally got a grip on the two of them. There was some really good movement and interchange between the front two, and James Maddison, who obviously made a big difference. He will start the game. There's no doubt about that at the weekend, provided he's come through this okay. So, you know, I think Brendan's got to look at it, the situation, and he's got to say that, you know, whatever it takes to get the 3 points. And I've said many times before, I firmly believe you should play two players up front. For me, it's a must. It should always happen. And it just gives you so many more options. You know, I feel for Jamie Vardy. I actually thought his hold-up play in the first half was really good at times. But, you know, you don't want him holding the ball up and spraying it out wide. You want him down the middle for when the crosses come in. And, you know, he was heavily outnumbered. He does need help. And, you know, he got that help in the second half, which he must appreciate as a centre-forward. So I think Brendan will certainly weigh up the options. I do think they should go two up front, and then you then pick whatever formation you want to pick behind those two boys. But, you know, the front two and perhaps James Maddison are the ones that have got to be on the pitch. The wide players for me, like I've seen, you know, obviously the Brighton game last week, and I've seen the Everton game this week. And the wide players for me at the moment, there's no one consistently performing who you could argue should definitely be in the team. So I think he'll be a little bit like that with the wide players, but down the middle and certainly the front two and Maddison, I think they'll be playing. Excellent.
Thank you very much, Tony. Just a final point from you. Will your former club West Ham do Leicester a favour this evening against Chelsea?
I have to wait and see, Dan, honestly. I mean, they've improved with their performances. They're slowly getting better, but they've made a poor start. They haven't scored a goal yet, West Ham. So I don't think any Leicester fan should hold their breath. I'm going to dash off and go and watch the game in a minute. As far as I know, it's 0-0, but I'll take that now. If you can blow the final whistle, I think as a West Ham fan and a Leicester fan, I think we'll take a 0-0 now, because the way it's looking, I think you'd probably see Chelsea picking up the 3 points.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Tony Crotty, for this evening.
Cheers, Matt.
See you, Tom.
Matt, obviously, last couple of points from both of you guys, really. How important is it that they get a positive result against Palace on Saturday?
Well, it's clear it's staring people in the face, isn't it? You know, points are needed. Not worried about performances, to be honest. They're a nice little bonus, aren't they? But it's crunch time, 6 games to go, all to play for. Leicester need to be mindful of the fact that they are, in pole position despite recent results and recent form. So, there's an air of negativity from some quarters. But they need to be strong and focused and shut that out and take it for what it is. It's been spoken about this final stage of the season since the restart. Is the culmination of efforts before, which it is. But now that's broken down even less. 6 games to go. They're in the box seat. Okay, not on the crest of a wave, but they're in a better position than Man United or Wolverhampton, all to play for. A reasonable run of games to come up. There's some challenges ahead, for sure. None more so than the final game of the season. That really could be a belter. And it could be all on that, couldn't it? But hopefully Leicester have done the job by then. But, listen, no time for panic even now. We said before today's game, Jerry Taggart mentioned, must not lose. And in some senses it was. But it's done now. No points were picked up. Leicester are still in an advantageous position, despite that defeat. It wasn't a cup final that they've just lost. There are 6 more of them to come. And Leicester still in with a decent opportunity.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Matt. Walshy, all I want from you now is a prediction for the game on Saturday, please.
A prediction, I think we're going to bounce back. I've got to stick by as I always will do, that. I'm going to go a 2-0 win, and we're going to get back to winning ways.
Perfect, Walshy. Thank you very much. You can, of course, follow how the Foxes get on Saturday here on City on the Sofa on Saturday. We'll be starting at 2 o'clock. But thank you very much to Steve Walsh, to Matt, to Elliot and to Tony Cotty. We'll see you all again on Saturday.